Welcome everybody to another episode of Cooldown. These episodes are birthed out of basically at the track. When the cars are cooling down, you've had a good day, you get together and chat. Mic check, mic check.
Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, we're good. Cool.
All good?
To hold it too close.
Okay.
And like when you're saying your P's,
Yeah.
you say them a little like harsh. So.
You aggressive with the P's, mate?
Dude, I got the
Yeah, so you got it, bro.
All right, Tito said, watch the P's, watch the mic.
Don't be too hard on the P's.
Don't be too hard on the P's. I had no clue my P's were sharp, or whatever we want to call them. But yeah, Jake, we keep this thing super loose, like literally as loose as this. Tito's probably got this thing rolling, and we're going to just call it what it is. So yeah, dude, we got Jake Wise in the house today. Thanks for everyone tuning in to another episode of Cooldown. I like to start by explaining what a cooldown is.
Okay.
So long story short, I think Sammy Tiger was our first guest. So a few years ago, cars are cooling down at the track, and we realized just like, while the cars cool down, we're talking shit in the pit anyway.
Yeah.
So we might as well just like talk together. So
Yeah.
cool downs are basically like trackside drift talk. Again, for those listening, there's a 1-year-old boy and 9 humans running around this shop. So hopefully we can keep it kind of calm for you guys listening, but who knows what's going to happen. But anyways, on today's episode, we got Jake Wise in the house. And Jake, you want to give us a little 3 seconds on yourself?
So I started drifting in 2018. Been competing for a few years now. Kind of moved up in the ranks. Started like just going to have fun and like a little shitbox, and ended up doing Texas Street Legal in Lone Star, and then moved up in the Pro-Am, and now I get to drive with guys like Nate all the time, and it's kind of where it's gone.
Yeah, and for those listening, like I really wanted to bring Jake on because I feel like Jake is, for example, like a local threat. Right? Meaning, when I'm at Holly LS Fest with Jake and we're about to battle, I do not take it lightly. Like, this dude is somebody who's grassroots, but also very competitive. And so I think in this episode, we'll talk a lot about how Jake built his program, how Jake operates his program, if I can offer any, advice to a program. And then really it's like, when you're grassroots driving and you want to go with, like, let's say to Pro-Am or Pro, and like the journey that all of that takes.
Yeah.
So
Remind
me again. So like for the listeners, like when you first started drifting, right? Like how did you get into drifting, and like how long have you even been drifting?
So always been a car guy my whole life since a little kid or whatever. I always wanted to go do race car stuff, but not real race car stuff, that's wrong I put it. But like getting into like circuit racing is really expensive. And as I started to get a little bit older, I started to realize that's not obtainable for most people. So I got a sim whenever I was a freshman in high school, and I put thousands of hours in on that. And I ended up falling into Assetto Corsa and drifting and whatnot. And I realized I was pretty good at it, and then I realized that that was a somewhat obtainable way to get into racing. So my senior year of high school, I got the money together to buy an S52 swapped E30, and it was really bad. It broke all the time. It was never running really good, but I did a few things, put YSFAB on it, ended up doing like, my own little twist on it, and then it blew a head gasket, and I was just over it at that point. So I ended up selling it, and I bought my Z. So I bought the E30 in 2018 and my Z in 2019, and I still have that car today, and it just kind of progressed from there.
That's awesome, dude. So so for myself, right, like I have never really driven on a sim. I've never had one. And I'm like the kid that goes to the parties where a dude's like, yo, I got a sim. I jump on it. I hit the wall every 4 seconds and then I get off that thing.
Yeah.
So like I'm super interested, and I know it's popular, and those listening, maybe this will resonate, but it's like when you came from thousands of hours on a sim into real life activity, like how did that feel? Was that easy? Were you like...
It was a really natural progression. So you've driven mineral wells lots of times. You know how every time you're there, it's like some crazy fast entry track? My first lap, I entered top of 4th in my E30, linked the whole thing just fine.
Wow.
And then kind of went through that car. I never had a cage, so I couldn't really tandem it anywhere. Actually, my first tandem lap was in that car, and I crashed into Evan Shanks. Little fun fact. But I got my Z and did Lone Star in 2019, and I won my first competition. So I contributed 100% to sim stuff.
Dude.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
The big thing with sims is the entry-level stuff, like the entry-level wheels and stuff, are not good. If you get good enough equipment, It's good, and then in my opinion, you really need to be in VR, because I think the reason a lot of people who go from driving to sim crash all the time is the lack of depth perception, and VR gives you that. And moving to that was game changer.
Nice, dude.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. I mean, that's definitely like, for me, you know, it was like industrial parks in rain in one cone, and we tried to do a drift left, tried to do a donut right. Like, it was very, very, very grassroots 15 years ago for me. But I hear a lot about kids coming from Sims, jumping right into cars, and then it like really, really expedites a lot of the learning.
Yeah. Well,
damn, dude, that's cool.
Yeah, like if you think about it though, if you want to go get an entry-level drift car, like a DEZ with an angle kit, right now they're like $6-7 grand. For half that, you can get about the best simulator setup on the market, and then you can have unlimited seat time. So even if it doesn't translate 100%, you get a lot of the muscle movements down. And it can put you so far ahead of the game instead of having to go to 25 real events and spend all that money, because that's exponentially more expensive.
My team's been begging for us to get a sim up here. And here we go. I can already hear the comments coming, like, get a sim.
It's cool stuff, because I got into a professional sim series. It's like the biggest one on Assetto. Like, I've battled Connor Shanahan, Peter Visick. I've battled like all of these like pro top level drivers in a sim setting, and the people on a sim are so much better than the people in real life.
Right.
Like, everybody's James Dean on a sim, because everybody has an unlimited seat time. So I also think that doing those kinds of competitions made me less nervous for real competition, because I know those guys are going to do 100-point laps every lap. And in real life, there's room for error.
Dude, that's cool. Well, then, yeah, let's jump into, you come from the sim, you get into a real car, you get into your 350Z, which for me personally, in my memory, that's when I really started to see you. So, like, how did the 50 come about? Like, and then where did that take you? I know, obviously, you then moved to an S14, but, like, tell me about those early days of competition for you.
Yeah, so like I said, that E30 I had was unreliable, and it was just a pain. And I didn't grow up in the situation to where, like, my family worked on cars. Like, I didn't even have a socket set until high school. Like, I didn't know anything. So having this car that broke all the time, it was too difficult for me to maintain in a way that made it still fun. So I started, I sold that for probably more than I should have been able to. And I was able to scrounge up the money to get the Z, which already had a cage, already had Fortunatos, already had Wisefab on it. So it was ready to go for grassroots stuff. So I got that, and I started in Lone Star. And my first year in Lone Star, I won a few events, and I got second in the series by a couple points in Street Legal. And then the COVID year after that was 2020, and that year was kind of messy.
And to catch people up too who are not from Texas, right? Like, so Lone Star Drift has a street legal, and then they have like their main Lone Star Drift competition series. And so for you to go in your year one, I'm gonna guess here, you can follow me up, but Jake was probably driving against 40 to 50 dudes, right? Like,
so some rounds of street legal, some round ones have had 70, 80 drivers.
Exactly. Like the Texas scene out here with Lone Star is huge.
Street legal is massive nowadays.
Exactly.
And I think the beauty of it is everybody's in, like, you can have a DE car versus like an HR car, which is a little bit of a car difference, but almost all the cars are on a level playing field. So it's who's driving better that day that wins, right? So I feel like that's such a good way to get started, because it takes out the difference of showing up with your 300 horsepower car and having to battle you and your S13, right?
Right.
Like, there's anything above that, there's huge car differences that negate driver advantage sometimes.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right. Exactly, yes. And so what we're talking about is, like, in certain cases, series are unlimited, and I can bring a pro car, and he can bring a street car, and I'm just going to have more car than you.
Yeah.
Where the street legal
exactly.
stuff tries to pair the cars, so it does need to come into driver and consistency and line. And so, like, one of the things that I recognize in you is, like, you love competition. At least from an outsider looking in, I'm like, and again, going back to the point on the beginning of the podcast, which was like, when I'm going to go battle Jake, I better put my best foot forward because he's going for it. So, like, where and when did you figure out, obviously drifting's fun, but, like, when did you realize, like, holy shit, I love to compete?
When I won my first competition. Like, that first like round that I won, I beat Josh Robinson, Patrick Carson, Chandler O'Neill. I can't remember the other two guys. But, like, I beat some guys who are very well established, and we were all basically in the same car. So, like, that sense of achievement felt fantastic.
Was that at Gulf Greyhound?
It was Mineral Wells.
Oh, Mineral Wells. Okay. I was there for one of your podiums at Gulf Greyhound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only track in Texas I never won at.
Dang, dude.
Gotten second there almost every time.
Hey, I've got a handful of trophies on that wall over there that are all second, so I feel you. Okay, cool. So then, and so for those listening, right, you start somewhere, you get into drifting, you find that drifting is fun, but then you also find the competition side of drifting. And then from there, you've been pushing and building a team to compete more, right? Like, what's your current mindset on competition drifting?
So after I won Street Legal, I kind of felt like I had checked that off the list, and I had accomplished the grassroots stuff. And at the time, I had a 1J IS 300, and I traded it to, do you know Zach Mitchmore? He won Lone Star Pro-Am in 2019 in an S14.
Okay.
So I traded him for a shell, cage material, dog box, the engine that's in my car now, most of what you need to build a Pro-Am car for that car. So I put that together, and I decided I wanted to go do Pro-Am. So I did Pro-Am in 22 and won that. So I got my FD license there.
Yep.
So right now I want to eventually figure out how to get an FD. I don't really want to do that forever, but I want to try and go check it off the list, to go experience it and do it. But it's eye-opening how difficult that is to do.
Absolutely. I think that's cool that you know what you want to do within it too. I remember when I went into Formula Drift, and I guess you'd say just thought that that's what it would be for the rest of my life. Once I get there, that's how it goes for the rest of my life, because I was looking up to dudes like Forsberg and Vaughn who have been doing it since it started, and they maintain it every year. And I kind of, went through the process of understanding that I wasn't able to maintain that.
It's a rarity that you can. Not very many guys pull that off, and I don't know. I know how stressful it would be to do it, just to be there even for a season or two, and that's not something I want for the rest of my life. Drifting's supposed to be fun.
Well, so then let's give some clarity to the process of why aren't you there yet, or what do you think is very difficult to get you there? What's the friction from Jake Wise now to Jake Wise in, let's say, pro spec?
Okay, so you might actually have differing opinions on this. I don't know, so it'd be interesting to see that. I think right now drifting in particular is in a really weird spot, because it's bigger than it was, say, 15 years ago when you could do FD for a reasonable cost. Reasonable is a relative term, I guess. It's expensive still, but it's gotten to the point to where everybody has some ridiculous car, and you have to be on that level to compete, right? Mm-hmm. So the car is expensive, tires are expensive, travel is expensive, the economy is kind of in a weird spot, so everything in general is more. And drifting has gotten to the point to where the cars and the driving is a full-blown professional motorsport, but drifting doesn't have the funding pumped into it like, say, an IndyCar or a NASCAR to sustain that. So to get to a level to where you can drive FD, you have to have this big budget, but most people can't do that on their own, and there's sponsors that can give it to you, but most of them are already taken by guys who are established in the sport. So what I've kind of started to realize is, at least from my point of view, if you don't have the big social media following, to get those big particular cash sponsors to help you with that, it's very hard to do, because there's so many guys that are well established, you, Grant Anderson, Adam LZ, all those guys. You know what I mean?
I think I feel the same way.
Yeah, so I feel like I have 4,500 followers on Instagram and a tiny little YouTube channel I do for fun. But it's hard for me to figure out how to pitch that.
Exactly, dude, and that's what's so relatable to so many people listening, right? Is I may have more of a following than you, but I've also been doing it longer than you.
Exactly.
Which is cool, but to your point, it's but how does the young kid come up and break through the time stamp of, you know what I mean? How do you break through just having a following versus having a driver skill set? One of the things that I quickly realized too was in drifting, you could be either a really, really great driver, or you could be a fair driver. But if you could put together a program, you could get yourself into certain moments. So your skill in drifting is a little bit less, of the prop, right? Yeah. It's the following and the audience and the attention is the prop.
Yeah, if you take Formula One, for example, right? If you're some 15-year-old kid who goes out and wins an entire season of Formula 3, wins every round, one of the big Formula One teams are going to come to you and say, hey, join our Ferrari driver program, and one day you'll be in Formula One. So in the big ones that have all the funding, a lot of people still need their own money and funding to get to the top. But if you're good enough, you'll make it there.
Of course.
In drifting, that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, and I personally struggle the most with trying to explain, like a lot of the times on the back end of, let's say, a sponsorship deal, it's like I can't tell a sponsor how well I feel that I drive, right? Like
Yeah.
I can't explain like my lap time is X, or you know what I mean?
That's true.
Like it's very difficult to explain how well I think I'm going to drive or the results that I'm putting together. Other than obviously, hey, I won, oh cool, and then they go back and try to watch the live stream and they don't even understand how you won. It's so
That's another problem.
difficult.
If you want to venture outside of drift-specific companies for sponsorships, you almost have to like put them through like Drift 101 in your proposal somehow so they even understand what you're talking about.
Well, it's like I can kickflip and you can kickflip, and whose kickflip's better, right? We both landed a kickflip,
Yeah.
but why is yours better than mine? Oh, you tweaked your foot. You got the style points. I didn't tweak my foot. Bummer. But like a partner or a sponsor still sees kickflip.
Yeah.
So
No, exactly.
to
Yeah.
your point, you know, and I think that that's where, like, in my personal opinion, we as a collective industry struggle to bring in those Red Bulls or those, you know, big partners, because there's no time stamp that they can bet on. How do you say Jake's better than Nate? How is Nate better than Jake? We went one more time at Holly LS Fest. You know, it just becomes a battle of just who almost hit each other. Like who was
I
more
did hit you one
dramatic,
time, but
you know? So it's like also the risk to win is so high. So
yeah, no, exactly. I don't know, man. It's tricky nowadays. I think probably more so than it used to be in a lot of ways, because there are enough like established drivers who have long-standing relationships with the very few drift-related companies that are willing to put people in that place. And I think that makes it hard.
Well, so what's your, you know, like if you want, share as much as you want to share, right? But like what's your pitch or your mindset going into 2024? Like do you have a, you know what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
you...
So the issue that I have is I have some partners that I really enjoy working with, like Fortunato, Holly. Like, for example, I have sponsorships, right? But whenever I got into those sponsorships, it was at a level to where I could get parts, either free or heavily discounted or whatever, in exchange for X, Y, and Z. And that's great. But over the last couple of years, since I decided that I wanted to try to approach the FD thing, it's been very difficult to transition those into a monetary thing. And once you get to the level of FD where it's $15,000 around minimum, a set of coilovers or, you know, whatever isn't getting you there.
It's just not going to
You know
cut
what
it.
I mean? And I find it very difficult to persuade them that I'm the one that's worth their cash budget when there's other guys, like Fortunato, for example, has Travis Reeder as like their top guy. So like, why am I worth that when you have him? You know what I mean? And I can't figure out the best way to approach that. I've had very good luck getting like part sponsorships and like discounts and that kind of thing. Like that hasn't been a problem. It's been transitioning that into something more, I guess, professional.
Yeah, and this is going to be interesting right here. So, like, I remember, and a lot of my partners also hate when I say what I'm about to say. So it's like, in business, thinking of 144 sponsoring somebody, right? Like, imagine I'm the actual sponsor. So then in this, I'm going to ask a kid to buy a T-shirt and then to run 4 logos on the car in these certain places at these certain sizes, and I'm going to give you 30% off that T-shirt.
Yeah.
So you're paying me, and then you're marketing me.
Yeah.
Like I reached a point in my career where I was similar to you, where I was like, I need to figure this out or I'm going to die, right? Like I'm not going to go drift if I do not figure this out. And I quickly realized that if I buy a product from a partner, if I buy a product and then I go run all these marketing logos and then I'm working for you, marketing your company, and I paid you.
Yeah.
It's like I reached a point where I was like, I will never do that again.
When you put it in that sense, it doesn't make
doesn't
make sense.
I will never do that again. I'm not going to offer a logo on my car and pay that company. I'm not going to work.
That's valid.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
No, it's completely valid. Whenever I was building my car, I was in the position of, okay, I don't bring in a lot of money on my own. I have support around me that helps, and I can get these sponsorships to give me discounts. So the only way I was getting my car from bare shell to finished car is by taking those deals, which is fine. And I loved a lot of the people that I'm working with in that sense. Like Fortunato was my first sponsor. That was whenever I was on my Z, and they reached out to me. Like they came and approached me, and it was awesome.
So right there, Jake, like my brain's turning right now.
Yeah.
So like if I was you in that exact moment, and you can use this tool later in life. Hey, what up? We're building a car. This year, year one, I will take the parts sponsorship. I'll pay for what X, Y, and Z. I'm going to run the logo on the car to earn my credibility with you guys as a company. Can we talk about year two, and can we start to strategize year three? If you say that, right, like when you go to SEMA and you're pitching, or you go to a sponsor and you start talking, when you go, yo, what up, I'm Nate Hamilton, I want to talk 3-year deals. Oh, yeah, Nate, we don't really think that far ahead. Thank you. Hang up the phone. Right?
Yeah.
So year one, you want to develop like, yes, I will run your products. Yes, I'm going to pay for your products. Yes, I'm going to jump through all the hoops and run the sticker on the car. That's fine. Year two, how does it look for us? Like, and for me, it's worked in a lot of ways that success does come, and they go, whoa, Jake, that's cool, dude. Not a lot of people are talking about year 2 and 3. Tell us about your plans. Okay, year 2, I want to prove myself in Lone Star Drift. Year 3, I want to get my pro license. Does this align with you guys? Holy shit, Fortunato, we really do want to be in FD, and we need a second driver coming up because Travis is going to not want to do things later, right? So you got to develop that kind of umbrella of time with them, and then if they don't align in that, then you get to go search the marketplace.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a couple sponsorships I have where I feel like the company sees a value in me because of what they have done without me even having to ask, I guess. But then I feel like I run into the problem of I'm willing to do whatever they need from me. Like if they need X, Y, and Z, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And I always try and make sure that I'm asking, what do you guys need from me? What would you like me to do for you? How can I help? But it seems I can't, in almost any case, translate that into financial backing. And the only solution I can come up to in my head is it's a lack of outreach. Which I don't know if that's as big of a deal as I make it out to be, but like I even in my own head, I can't rationalize why they would say take a number, 30 grand, right? You have company X has $30,000 to give. Why would they give it to guy A who's going to outreach 20,000 people a month when guy B is going to do 20 million?
But here's why. Here's why.
That.
I got you. I can help you. So here's how you break that up. So in your case, I would definitely try to think of it as, okay, so 2 trains of thoughts here for those listening, because I'm going to go a little forward and a little backward. So option A is I want to talk to a company. Let's use an easy example, something I'm looking at. I want to talk to Deechworks. And I'm like, hey, Deechworks, year 1, 2, and 3, do you think this aligns? So you have a big picture moment, right? So yes, you're keeping big picture conversation alive. Now, year 1, or let's say year 2, right? You may be working in just free products or just product discounts into free products. But now, here's the math. Why I think X company would support Jake Wise also alongside whoever else is you need to sell gas money, right? You need to explain, like for me, when I was younger, if I went to X company and I said, yo, what up, 30 grand annual, can you support me? I'm struggling turning in this to monetary support, like, but I need 30 grand. It's like, I'm a business owner and I'm going, what is Jake gonna do with my 30 grand, right? Like, it makes sense, like you probably need 100 grand to go drifting a year and you're asking 30 from me, but I don't know, right? So what I'm telling you is, you have to, like what we do, is you take your overall cost of the season, divide that by the amount of partners you may be talking to. So let's say I have 10 people on the hook and I need $100,000. Well, then I need each person to give me 10 grand. And then that 10 grand is going to pay for all of our hotels this year. So I would go to Deechworks and say, yo, what up? Please, can you help us with hotel support? Oh, fuck, I'm going to pay just strictly for hotels. Yep, that's what your 10 grand's going to. On average, there are $1,100 rooms, buy 10 events. Great, 10,000 bucks is going to help us do this. And then they start to go, oh, cool. Like, I could see that. So I think what I'm saying to you is, like, break up something. Like, if you have a company that you've been with for multiple years, just pitch to them gas money, right? It's going to cost $800 in fuel every round I go to. I'm going to 10 rounds. Can I get $8,000? And they may go, yeah, dude, we got you.
Yeah.
It's worked well for me, knowing that, so for those who don't know, most of the time, it's going to be Jake Wise talking to a rep So a representative of a company, that rep's going to be about as old as Nate Hamilton these days. So it's fun for me because these kids pitching are my age, right? So I'm like, okay, let me gear you up to pitch to your boss. So just remember that. Jake Wise to the rep to the boss.
Yeah.
And then you really want to cue the rep up in what you're paying for to then cue the boss up for what the boss is going to pay for. And giving a reason to why you need the money is generally speaking how a smaller social media platform could do it.
Yeah, I guess that's where my question comes into you is, do you think your success in that is related to you being you?
The success in that is that the driver understands the business of what he's asking for. So most business owners that are writing all of these checks for motorsports, they need a story. And the story may be, Jake stayed in fucking Roach hotels and now we want to get him in the Holiday Inn. Like, it doesn't matter what the story is. It can be relatable to Jake.
Yeah.
Like, yo, dude, I spent 3 years in Roach hotels. Please upgrade me to this Holiday Inn. Here's an invoice. It's $1,000 each round. Can X company help me? And they're like, dude, we want to get Jake out the Roach motel. Like, it just has to be that.
Yeah.
That's all it has to be. It doesn't need, you don't need to be super cool. You need to tell a reasonable story as to why you need help and then execute it, bro. And then they're going to be like stoked. So I would say too, to that point, because I can see what Jake's kind of asking me, which is like, yeah, man, but you got a charm to you, and maybe I don't have a charm to me. So is that why? And that's not why. Just realize that business owners want to know what they're paying for, and then you create a story as to how you can help them help you. Kind of confusing.
Makes sense. No, I get what you're saying, man. It makes sense.
Don't count yourself out.
Yeah.
Right? If you have a small social media presence, everyone did in the beginning. If you have a winner's mindset behind the wheel, that's a huge plus. If you actually have 2 cars, a Z that can be thrown around and a 14 that can perform well, that's a huge plus, right? Like, don't count yourself out because of your social media following.
Yeah, it seems like in today's world, there's so many people who've gotten so big. And it feels like little fish in big sea kind
Yeah,
of
but
thing,
let me flip the coin on that. Being that I can hang around some of those big kids is like, what you realize too is when you scale a business and you can operate, sometimes they don't even want an $8,000 annual sponsor, right?
That's fair.
Because
Yeah.
it's like, hey, dude, I'm gonna do my own thing and create the income I need anyway.
Yeah, they don't need it.
So it's like they get so big that the door is still open. You know what I mean?
I never thought about it that way. That makes sense.
Well, I see the back end of how it goes, right? So it's
Yeah.
like I actually see, even myself, like my 25-6 goal, 2026, I don't really want too many sponsors. And again, because Jake, you got to be going to the sponsors and you're saying, I want to earn the $8,000 annual to get me out of the Roach Hotel. How do I work for you? And then you have to work for them.
Yeah.
Right?
No, and I'm totally happy to do that. Absolutely.
But then you get 10 people you're working for,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
a lot.
you're
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. We're jumping through all these hoops to earn $10,000
Absolutely.
annual, and it becomes a game of like, how do you get 3 sponsors that take care of you, and then you can balance your time and your efforts properly to care about those 3 sponsors the most. And so, yeah, I just see kids spread themselves thin a lot. I see kids literally pay the company and put the logo on the car. And it's just so interesting, but I love the conversation.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like drifting's in a state right now where it's close to. We need like somebody like some stupid like Tide or somebody to come in and sponsor an FD driver and open the door to non-drift specific companies with a whole lot of money to start pumping stuff into drifting, and then I think it becomes to a point where it's sustainable for a lot more people.
I love that train of thought. That was what I did when I took off in 2018. I didn't drift at all. I thought, if I create T-shirts for the industry, I'm giving something to the industry.
Yeah.
So to your point, we all can sit down and look at the 7 coilover companies in our whole marketplace, and then we're all fighting for those versus how do we go get a Tide sponsorship and bring something
like, if you look at all the big motorsports in the world, none of them operate only within their own window. They all have all these crazy huge companies from all realms of commerce into their motorsport, and that's where the big funding comes from.
So let's try this. If you were to pitch 144 for a sponsorship, right? Like if I had some money in my pocket and I wanted to actually support Jake Wise, what are some of the services, because we need to know our services we provide as drivers, like what would you say some of your strengths are? Options. Hey, I win races. Hey, I shoot photos and videos. Hey, I can talk to a camera and mention your product. Like, what do you feel strong that you do as a just general programmer or like driver?
I think I feel well about A, B, and C. But for me, I want to know what that company actually needs me to do, because I feel like the easy thing to do is pitch a company and be like, hey, I'm going to go to 10 events. I'm going to post your part 6 times a year or something, whatever. And I don't feel like that really does anything. So I don't know. Every sponsor I have, I try and figure out what they actually want me to do for them.
Yeah, I feel that. And
So that would be my question to you in that situation, would be, what do you need?
Exactly. And that's exactly how you guys got to do that. For those listening, that's how you do it. You go up to the company and you go, hey, what's up? I'm Jake. How can I work for you? And then again, Jake, you got to remember, it's you to the kid to the boss, right? So then sometimes the marketing department doesn't even know what they need. And I've been through that too, where it's like, I can't make you guys happy because you don't know what you need. You can't put me to task. So like, we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, and I don't know, I feel like for me, it's not so much a sponsorship as it is a partnership. Like, I want to feel like I'm helping the company that I'm involved with. And if I go to you, like I had a sponsor my first year at S14, where I said, well, what are you guys wanting from me? And they didn't even answer my email. They just like gave me a discount code and I was like, there you go. And I was, what do you want me to do? I don't feel like I'm giving you anything, and I feel bad about that. So I don't know. I want the company to be vocal with me and actually explain their needs. And like Tire Streets is good about that, for example. Like, I've really enjoyed working with them for that reason, because they know what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good thing too. And like, if you can recognize that companies don't know what they want and then save yourself from it, sometimes that's better. Although it's more difficult. Yeah. You're like, damn, maybe I don't take this free product, but if I work extra hours at my normal day job, I could just buy that product and save myself that loop anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like the lust of sponsors needs to make sense within your time and your deliverables. And I think that can be a very blurry thing.
Yeah, for part sponsorships in particular, I feel like it's tricky, because if you need parts, obviously we talked about that's not a good long-term strategy, but if you do, and one company is kind of like iffy on what they need or want, and you're like, this probably isn't a good fit, there's only so many of them, right? Like, if you need an angle kit, there's only 3 or 4 companies that make decent angle kits out there for any of our chassis. So that gets tricky, and then you move into the cash side. And one thing I've really noticed is a lot of these parts companies, they don't want to give you cash unless they absolutely have to. So what I've been trying to do is find companies outside of drifting, because I feel like that's a better route to go for the cash side of things. But then you run into the problem of they don't even know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And it's, I don't know, it's like a weird balance of, do I want to try and go out and convince somebody that what I'm doing in drifting is worth their time, or do I want to get in with a weird little deal that I'm not super happy with a drift company and hope it grows one day?
Dude.
Which is kind of the route I've gone on, and it's not working.
For those listening, you got to go in the comments and give us some feedback, right? Like, it's a spaghetti of a mess to try to figure this life out.
I feel like it's because drifting hasn't quite hit that point yet.
Yeah, for sure, which hopefully we can get there, dude. Like, we need to make drifting skateboarding. We need to make drifting rad. We need to make drifting your personality backed by riding walls. Like, that's one thing I will say that you have on your side is, like, we know when you show up, you're going to put on a good show. You know what I mean?
I try to. That's what's fun.
Yeah, which I think will go, it'll go further than you think, right? Like, that's one of the harder things to nail down, right? Is like, can you go tandem with Vaughn and do a good job and smile all day and sweat all day and then go drink a beer afterwards and be in the marketplace? Like, can you keep your energy up for the demand of a racetrack, which we know you can, which is good, you know?
That's my favorite part of the whole thing.
Same. Then you got to learn a little bit of business, figure out how to get these sponsors to support you monetarily and what you do for them, and then try to lock in multiple year deals so you can worry less and keep building year 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think it's kind of all happened really quickly too, because I didn't expect to build a car and for it to work as well as it did out of the box. Like, that was my first time doing anything of that magnitude. I expected the first year or two to be like troubleshooting and getting it actually working well. Mm-hmm. And then I won Pro-Am the first year, and all of a sudden I was like, I can do FD next year.
Yeah.
So I wasn't prepared for that.
Which you don't have to answer, but so 2024, you will try to get up in that pro class, or are you going to keep trying to build?
My FD license is good for 2 years. Within 2 years, I have to make the minimum points in Pro Spec to keep it for another 2. So if I don't do it this year, I then have to go through Pro-Am again.
Exactly.
So the cost of doing Pro-Am again is a lot more than the cost of doing a couple rounds of pro spec.
Okay,
So I
okay.
might, what I'm kind of thinking right now is pick like, say, 2 tracks that I feel like are most advantageous for me in my car, do those, and if they go well, do another one or something.
So do me a favor, dude. Please, 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 when you go to do the 2 rounds of pro spec, go there and to your like this is going to be hard to say. What I would love to see is that you understand you may or may not win, but go drive with as much style and Jake wise as you can.
Yeah,
Because if you don't commit to the 4 anyway, then just show them what style is in drifting, knowing you may not win the whole event,
Yeah.
but like you go have the most fun you can have just to put your points on the board to retain for next year anyway.
Yeah.
And like just you may win that way. Like when you
I mean,
drive.
that is 100% the plan.
Okay, good.
I can't stand watching people.
Dart.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah, big angle everywhere, fun, style, full throttle, and then let those boys choke up behind you if they need with their tight cars. But like, go do the most rad, fun time you can have,
Yeah.
and you may even win over the staff and the people anyway that way. All you need to do is just be calm and do what you do, and then the sport will fall in love with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm hoping those 2 rounds will get me the footing I need to do a full year the next year or something.
Nice.
But,
Nice.
Yeah, that's kind of my hope.
Awesome, dude. Cool, cool, cool. So then give us a little bit feedback about your S14. Would you drive in your 14?
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Okay.
I can't afford to build another car.
Yeah.
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 So this year I got the engine rebuilt by Spending Performance down in San Antonio. And it went from a stock LS3 with heads and a cam to stroker, high compression, all that stuff. So it makes a bunch more power this year. And I had it gapped for 300 shot of nitrous. So I can show up with up to like 900 if I want.
Awesome.
It's got, I mean, it's wise fab, dog box, quick change, all that stuff. So it's good to go pretty much.
That's awesome.
It's a little light, but figure that out. I think it's 2,900 pounds for pro spec, and my car weighs like 25 with me in it or something.
Damn.
Yeah.
You have to weld some bars.
Yeah.
You have to add some concrete in the roll cage real quick.
Yeah, so I definitely will do that car in pro spec and see how that goes.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Well, I'm trying to think about a few things on my mind. Do you have any topics that you want to bring up? Any questions that you have, or?
Why Jay-Z over another LS car?
Cool, that's a good one. So for those listening, like,
I've been curious about that ever since you like released that car.
yeah, for sure. So like for those listening, I've been in a V8 my whole life. Me and my dad, when I was younger, I blew up an SR20. I quickly realized I wouldn't be able to maintain that type of engine. I put a V8 in my car, and I got like the next 5 years out of it. So like for me, the original LS platform was out of pure lap time, seat time, and just longevity of purchase. And then from there, Golan Engine came and sponsored us, and we were able to do cool tricks. From there, the Accelera deal closed, where I was able to build a new car, and I really wanted to be excited. Like, I just was less excited to do some of the similar things I've been doing. And so I felt that the Jay-Z platform would, A, be way more difficult to drive. So that's the lust of Nate wins races, his car's easy to drive, blah, 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 blah. So, like, my internal fire is I'm going to run this 3.4 2J from Rad Dan, and I'm going to still win races and be able to prove to the industry I can do it in an LS or a Jay-Z platform. So, like, that's the real fire behind why. And then just having the funding from Accelera to do the lustful things, like buy a very expensive engine package. It just was fun to give the money back to my friends, such as Rad Dan.
Yeah.
So for me, it was basically just the analogy of I've been in vans my whole life. I want to run Nikes.
I mean, you can't argue with that logic, but I don't know, that's a big change.
It's going to be a huge change, and everybody right now behind the scenes is telling me to run nitrous. I want to go to Grid Life and run 900 laps, and I don't want to maintain a nitrous bottle. So I'm going to attempt to, A, free the car up. Like, it's some of the stuff we talk about behind the scenes here with the boys is like, this car will have 900, 800 horsepower, and it's going to be on a fairly medium grip level setting, right? So it's supposed to be fun. I need to get used to the dynamics of it, and I'm not looking to put 999 horsepower to the wheel and like do a wheelie yet. So I don't want to run nitrous. I want it to fall on its face. I want to learn turbo settings through Adam. We're talking about 900s versus 1080s or whatever it is. So it's like just experience with that is what I'm looking for, and I do think it will be more difficult to drive.
Yeah, I don't know. What scares me away from turbo engines in general is just the complications added by adding all that stuff to your engine. And I hate working on my car at the track.
I mean, dude, and
That's my favorite thing.
luckily for us though, like, you know, we just came off SEMA for those who don't know, and the turbo package through Vibrant and DEI and Garrett, like, it's actually opened up more doors for me. So luckily I have Adrian.
That's true, yeah.
You know, so it's like the LS platform was sick, but as soon as we announced we were in the JZ stuff, it like, you know,
Yeah,
people
15 more
people started
people.
kind of knocking at the door like, yo, you could run this now and you can run this now. And so it actually helped us.
I don't know. I think a big part of it too is you bought everything on that car is very nice. And if you buy very nice things and you put it together right, it's probably not going to break very often.
Yeah, that was the goal, you know, like that.
Car's so nice.
That budget, that car, I mean, dude, it's so nice. And I don't think it hit me until I got to SEMA. When I rolled into SEMA and I had a fair amount of the friends and the boys come through, and like then I walked the show and I really had a moment where I was like, wow.
My car is as nice as these.
Like we have an on time, like a 2023 0 mile premium package GR86 that we just turned into a race car, and we debuted it at SEMA with, you know, watching Rays and all the other boys have the same GR86s. Like, it was really cool for me, dude.
That's awesome, dude.
I felt like I'm in the dirt and I drove my 240 forever, and then I finally get to announce like an on-time package that's relatable and something very interesting for me to drive. It's cool.
Yeah, I would love to get into a new chassis one day, for sure. I love my 240.
I know you will.
Man.
I know you will, man.
That's the first time I've seen it.
Yeah? What'd you think?
It's stupid how nice it is.
Isn't it nice?
Everything's so new.
It's so new and nice, and like you see the boys, they've already pulled the motor out of it like 3 times, like, so
Yeah.
they're getting used to the flow.
Yeah, those little problems are annoying, but it's also long-term probably better.
Yeah, straight up,
Yeah.
and that's good for them. And also, too, something to talk about, we have a new member here at 144, Logan.
Logan.
And we got Logan from Jake,
Yep, you
dude.
stole him from me.
I know, man. Definitely didn't mean to steal him.
No, I think Adrian was the first one to talk to me about it. And like Logan's always wanted his career to be in racing, but in particular with drifting.
Yeah.
And he's the most passionate person about drifting I think I've ever met. Like that is what he lives and breathes. I'm sure you already know that from having him here. And
Yeah, you got to tell him to stop talking and start wrenching, you know?
he will talk all day long if you let him.
But he does. I can tell his passion. And for us, you know, background story is just, we had Adrian, we had Brandon. Both of these their retention is going on 3 years here at the shop. So it's like really good kids. Brandon is becoming an engineer. He's doing school full time now and really giving us, you know, 16 hours in a biweekly paycheck.
Surprised he can even do that. I was engineering for a while too, and
Yeah.
that's a hard life.
It's a steep hill, dude. So, and then I think we had, I don't know, an open house, and Logan came around and Adrian connected with him, and they kind of cultivated the opportunity to help Adrian. And then obviously it was important to clear it through you,
Yeah.
because Logan is and is still allowed to crew on your car whenever it's fine, like when it's fit.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So,
So Logan and me started my first drift event, my Z, I actually pitted next to Logan. That's like where we met. And then last year before LS Fest, I decided that for a bigger competition like that, it's probably best to have at least like one person there with me, because I was doing everything by myself before that.
yeah.
And he's been with me ever since. But what I like about him is he's very, very, very cautious.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe too cautious.
Yeah.
But I know that if he tells me something's good, it is good and it is right and it will be perfect. So I've kept him around for a long time because of that reason. He's meticulous and he will never ever let something not be done right.
Dude, in our team meetings, that's like the biggest compliment you can give a mechanic, right? Like when I tell my team, Adrian puts me in a car that I feel safe going 100 miles an hour at a wall, it's like, what else can you say to that?
Yeah, it's
like,
important to me. Like even for something as little as if you're changing tires on my car, like I want to know that all 10 of my rear lug nuts are tight. Like that matters because I'm about to go real fast, really close to somebody.
Exactly, dude. And you have to have that confidence with your mechanics, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
Luckily, I've gotten a couple more people that are willing to help me. I don't have the budget to pay people a bunch of money to come. I usually I'll cover expenses and make sure they're happy. But knowing that he's somewhere where it's a good environment and he gets to do cooler stuff than I can get him to do, I couldn't be happier for him.
Yeah, dude. And speaking of that, that just made me think of a thought really quickly on the sponsorship topics, which was when you are looking at your overall cost for the year, like building in, let's say, salaries for your mechanics. And obviously year 1, 2, 3, it may not happen. But just knowing that, like, okay, these kids cost round numbers, whatever, 50, 60, 30, 20, whatever the fucking number needs to be. But it's like knowing, oh, I built in this number for my mechanic, this number for my mechanic. Let me go to the sponsors and see if I can get it. We came in shy. Sorry, boys. McDonald's in a free hotel room, but you're still, you know what I mean? But still, like, thinking big like that is good.
Yeah.
I ran into a driver who knows who he is, but he was priding himself on how low of a budget he could do a season. And then you sit down and you drink a margarita with him and you're like, but you pay your boys. And he's like, oh, no, man, we sleep in the back of the truck and everyone's just down for it. It's like, for a year.
Yeah. No, for sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so like where I'm at with Adrian was just like same shit, right? Year 1, Adrian, we're sleeping in the back of the truck. Sorry, dude. Year 2, I built you in a small salary. Year 3, I'm getting you closer to where you need to be. Year 4, we're stoked, right? So like knowing that you need to accommodate for those dudes, even when you're at your level, is just a good way to start building that expectation for your partners in the future.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky enough to where the people who help me are just my best friends, right? And they know that right now there isn't budget there to pay them and all that stuff, but I make sure that it doesn't cost them anything to go.
Yep.
And right now they're all happy with that, and we go and we usually do well, and they get a lot of excitement from winning and stuff too, and they're stoked on it. But they all know that there's a bigger picture here, and hopefully in a few years everything can be happier and like you're talking about.
Absolutely.
So that's been good. But
yeah, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Well, let's I mean, it's been a really good fucking talk, Let's talk a little bit. I know we both probably don't exactly know the answer to this, but like, what would you say in 2024, other than maybe your quick prospect moments? Like, how's it looking for you? Where you want to go? What are you going to do?
So my goal for next year, like my tentative plan, I guess, would be 2 plus rounds of prospect, minimum 2. I want to do LS Fest Texas, LS Fest East, maybe Vegas too. I don't know. Because the problem is you start going to those events, it's almost like going to FD because you're still traveling across the country. I mean, I can run on an Accelera at LS Fest, not at FD, so that helps. But so I want to do at least 2 LS Fest, 2 FD rounds. I'll probably still do some grassroots local stuff just because I have so many very, very good friends that drive at those events. I like those a lot. But I don't know.
Cool.
I don't know. After that, I'm not really sure. Still working on that.
No, that's cool. Those are some good moments, dude.
Yeah, I like those events a lot.
LS Fest stuff is awesome, and it's always actually really, really good competition. Do you ever go to any grid lives, or you ever go to any like festival fun, like just?
My problem right now, it's the budget thing again. Like going to take Grid Life up in Michigan, right? It's super expensive to go to. If you want to drive a bunch, it's super expensive, and I guess the return on it is something that I can't justify for the cost to go right now.
Right.
I would love to.
Yeah.
I would love to go.
And that's too, so another really good point, right, is like when, and I'm doing this right now. So for those listening, we're November 9th or 10th or whatever time it is. So we're in November, and we're talking about 2024, and we're talking about what's coming up next. And remember to some of the partners, yo, what up, ex-partner, where do you want to see me? Right?
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, yeah, dude, we really want to get our product up to Grid Life. And you're like, awesome. Grid Life's gas money is this. Can we go? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they're like,
that's true.
That's how you do that, though. Just know that, right? Just know that
that's true.
You can build your tour to Jake's liking. Like, we know Jake wants to go, and his monetary effort matches a race result, right? Like, you want to go to places where you can race.
Well, like this year, for example, I've had like the discounts on tires and stuff. My car hasn't broken like all year. It's been fantastic. So my big costs, hotels, food, gas, tires. And tires have been helped. And the other stuff I just kind of mitigated as much as I can. So it's to the point to where I've done well enough in competition to where it's not offset the cost of driving, but it's been
close,
very reasonable. So like if I can go do like a Mayhem Maker 10K in Kansas and win $6,000, I will choose that over going to Grid Life and wherever because there's no upside to it, which is not a sustainable way to think because you can't rely on winning to fund your program.
But you could also then know that that's where you're going to go and what your heart is calling you to do. But then you get to ring up Fortunato, let's say, and be like, want me to go to Grid Life? Here's the gas money bill. Like you could then just pitch stuff that you know may get said no because you already know you're going to go where your heart wants you to go. So it's like, why not try to open up doors just to see if they say yes? And if they say yes, then you're like, sick. You know, my favorite thing to do is go, hey guys, here's this project. If BC comes through and Accelera comes through and Deechworks comes through, we're going to do this thing. Can I count you in? And BC will say yes. And then, you know, Deechworks will say yes. And then Tire Streets will say maybe no. And then it's like, sorry guys, we can't do it. We all didn't come together to bring this together. And then sometimes you find that the other people go, well, how much more do we need to do it? And they're like, all right, cool. Well, if we both pitch this in, then we can do it, right? So like, just remember, not the followers, the story. The story is backed by the math. The math's backed by the data that you have, right? Going to Grid Life Michigan is going to cost X in fuel, X in mileage, and you can pull that number out.
Yeah, I don't know. That's true.
It's just fun. It can be fun when it doesn't have to feel so heavy.
Yeah.
If you already know you're going to go to the events that you in your heart want to go to, and you get in meetings and situations where you can pitch ideas, might as well.
Yeah, it's a tricky transition for me because whenever I was in my Z, it was so cheap to go drive. I was doing 25, 30 events a year because it was a set of tires a weekend or something and no fuel cost and open trailer, no crew, whatever. And then transitioning to the bigger stuff to where that number for the same money goes from like 25 to like 4. It's difficult for me to limit myself to that based on budget, and that's where, I don't know, like I feel like, I think I was watching your episode with Kaylee, where she was talking about you shouldn't have to rely on sponsors to do what you want to do. And in order to drive as much as I want to drive, right now in my life, it's not feasible on my own. So I feel like that's a tricky thing to navigate too.
Yeah, and her advice there too. Yeah, it is, dude. I mean, it's all very, very expensive. Like I think to myself in like drivers meetings, like, dude, we're all drifting today. You know, like how rare is that? Like,
yeah, once you get to the track.
To be a driver, it's rare in itself. Yeah. So like there has to be a lot of things going on to even get you to the racetrack. But prior to that, to Kaylee's point, just having the drive to create it all yourself and get yourself to the track shows companies the effort that it takes anyway. So that was her point, was just like, do your best. Like even if you do 2 events a year, do your best to do what you can by yourself. That then will prove to the partners that you're in it for other reasons than just money and sponsorships and being cool, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I love it. I just want to figure out how to make it more calm and like obtainable. Yeah,
I think you're speaking to a lot of the audience right now. You know, the upper big following kids are the lesser, you know what I mean? Like us kids in the dirt that are grinding and trying to figure out how to be sponsored is the majority. So I think you're speaking to a lot of people, and I hope this translates, and I hope you guys just reverse engineer your math, build in your growth, right? Build in the mechanics salary, even though you know you're not there yet, and aim high and explain to people what they're paying for, and then try it without any expectation of it working.
Yeah, it's an uncomfortable thing to do, to reach out to XYZ company and be like, hey, give me this really large lump sum of money. Like, it's an uncomfortable ask. And that's been something that I've had to kind of battle around too, is even just sending the email or making the phone call. Because it's like, man, if somebody asked me for 30 grand, I'd be like, why, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to...
No, dude, you can do it.
Call.
You can do it. And some of that takes time. Like, to close the GR86 deal took 8 months.
Yeah.
To close the deal. And then took 8 months to get the car here. You know what I mean? Like, some of that stuff is just, you got to dream and you got to believe in it. And then, I mean, to be transparent, for some of these companies, 30 grand is like,
drop in the bucket.
Not much.
You know, I've gotten told no enough by this point where I'm less worried about it. So
exactly.
That's good.
Exactly. But, and you'll get hungry enough to where you have to try.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Awesome, Jake. It's been a really cool talk. Do you have anything else on your mind? Do you want to shout anyone out? You want to, like, let everyone know where to find you?
Well, I would always say that if you want to get into drifting, start on a sim. That's my number one piece of advice. Because all this money talk we've been doing for the last however long is not relevant to you in a sim. And you can do more driving.
That's rad. And I'm sure you can get sponsored by sim. Like, I'm sure, meaning,
dude, it's crazy.
You know what I mean? I'm sure you can do sim competitions and still have partners and still have sponsors and still be in your living room.
Absolutely. You can. There's lots of people that do it, and that stuff's growing a lot too. But yeah, get a sim and have fun. And then once you get comfortable and you're in a financial position where you can go drive, then make the transition.
That's really cool.
That's my advice.
That is really cool advice, man. Well, thanks for coming through on this cool down. I appreciate you, Jake.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.